How are y'all doing today? It's A here from my YouTube channel, Sneaker Peek, and I have a very, very interesting podcast here for you today. So, I was recording content for this upcoming Friday, which is going to be March 5th. So, I do have episode 2 of season 1 dropping still on Friday, March 5th, but today is March 1st, and as I finished recording episode 2 for this upcoming week, news broke of a gigantic story in the sneaker scene that I could not refrain from talking about. This is an emergency podcast, so that's probably what it's going to be titled. It's an emergency podcast, not going to be episode 2. This is going to be the emergency podcast. So it's an emergency off the top shelf podcast today. Guys, this story is gigantic. This is a bombshell that was dropped on us in the world of sneakers today. So for those of you who did not hear the big news of the day, Nike VP, so vice president that oversees North American business here in the U.S., and I think I'm saying this right, Hebert, so it's Ann Hebert. She was the vice president and general manager of all North America Nike sales and just Nike business in general here in North America. And she was with Nike for 25 years. And the reason that she has stepped down from being the VP is because she was found to be linked with her son's reselling business. So he was making purchases for his company, West Coast Streetwear, under a credit card that was registered to his mom's name. And this is huge news. His name is Joe Hebert, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it's Joe Hebert. And he has, like, if you go through the pictures that are being released right now, 400, 500 pairs of Jordan 5 off-whites, um, stacks and stacks of boxes of SB Dunks, of, the 10, the Nike off-white 10 collection, Blazers, everything you can think of, Yeezys. He has every single shoe you could think of, just stacks and stacks. It literally looks like a wall of sneakers, and he's just there with his arms crossed, flexing, thinking he's all tough. So th- this is goes directly to what I was talking about in episode 1 of this podcast about the sneaker culture dying to backdooring to resellers, and this is the prime example. You have a Nike VP, a Nike executive, who has all the connections and all the ability to, do anything they want, really, and she is most likely providing sneakers for her son at retail price for him to go out and sell and scout people for. And it's ridiculous. And reading through, a post from BR Kicks where I first saw the news when it was breaking, she was actually in charge of the sneakers app. So she oversaw the whole North American region, and she oversaw the sneakers app for Nike. And literally, this kid is sitting in front of a warehouse, and the warehouse is full of shelves full of sneakers, and he has a bunch of off-white fives in front of him. And I think it is absolutely ridiculous that people can do this. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I was talking about in episode 1. You have people who have absolutely no interest in sneakers whatsoever. They're interested in just taking people's money, reselling at the highest price they can, because we're talking about thousands and thousands of pairs of shoes that could have gone to somebody who actually wants the shoes, who actually is willing to spend that money on the shoes. But instead, it's going to Joey Bear here, who is going to resell them back to the people who actually want them for $600 $700. And one of the interesting pieces, because the official report came from Bloomberg Business Week, and it was a cover story that kind of uncovered all of this that led to her stepping down. They put an interesting piece in here that I'm going to read to you guys. It says that Joe Hebert's business describes him using bots to compromise online launches, mentioning that he rang up $132,000 in one morning for a launch of Kanye West sneakers on the artist's Yeezy Supply website. So this kid got bots and went into Yeezy Supply and was able to get $132,000 worth of merchandise on a Yeezy launch. It doesn't specify if it's sneakers. It doesn't specify if it's sneakers and clothing or just clothing. But I'm assuming it's most likely sneakers because from what I've seen from, the pictures that are being released, he's posing with hundreds and hundreds of boxes of Yeezys. And if we just go ahead and do the math there, 132,000 pairs of sneakers, and at 220 a pair of Yeezys, we're talking about 600 pairs of Yeezys. And now minimum Yeezys are going like 350. So we're saying at a bare minimum, he made $210,000. So $80,000 profit off of scalping people, off of bots, off of his connections, because he was using a credit card that was under his mom's name. And that's just off Yeezys. That's just off Yeezys. So imagine what he was making off the Jordan releases, the off whites. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous that this kind of stuff is happening. And I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about. That it is absolutely killing the sneaker game. That people are able to do this kind of stuff and get away with it. And I think that this, if somebody who's as big in the company as a VP and has so many eyes on them can do this kind of stuff and get away with it for the most part, imagine what lower level employees can do. They can probably move stuff at a lesser volume, but they can do it without getting caught. So they can do it for years and years and years. Because who's going to worry about, I don't know, Joe, I don't know what, in the corner over there who's sneaking off 5, 10 pairs of shoes, hiding them in a corner to resell them. And he's doing it every single launch. But then there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of Joes. There's a bunch of, I don't know, whatever their names are, just hiding away a stash of sneakers that they're going to go and backdoor to somebody. And it's honestly shocking that Nike's even going to the extent of defending her, saying that they're insisting that they were, aware of this business and that they were made aware of it, and that that it wasn't violating any of their terms and conditions or anything like that. And it is it's sickening. It's sickening to think that this is just one example that got exposed, and then it makes you think of how many others are out there that we haven't caught yet or that we haven't seen yet. And then it's just when you look at the report, it says one line that stood out to me was, it says the entire situation served as a case study in the inequity in the sneaker reselling business and how there are so often connections and backing from the self-made stars of the reselling industry that are hidden under the surface. So that makes me feel like they're like exactly what I just said. There's so many other cases out there that we don't know. There's people who are being backed by people we don't know. This lady was a VP, but maybe somebody is being backed by a regional distributor or a regional director or a store manager. They're being backed by different people. And for the VP, I'm sure money was not the motivation for her, but more of trying to get her son recognized, trying to get her son some money for himself to try to build his business, in quotations, off of her stealing from from the people who actually want the shoes, the people who actually want to go out and buy them. But instead she was giving those pairs that were supposed to go out to paying customers to her son. And I know it's alleged. It's all alleged right now. But I think if she steps down, it could be because of the optics of the whole situation. But it's hard for me to believe that he was able to get this many pairs of shoes without any help. And even if you just leave out, his mom's stature inside of Nike as a whole, he's also a prime example of using bots, because in the report it confirms that he was using bots for Yeezy drops and Yeezy launches, spending over $100,000 on a credit card under his mother's name. And that's absolutely ridiculous that people are able to do that. So all you need to do is have the funds. If you have the funds, I mean, you can go ahead and scalp all you want. And then it's sickening to see that people are able to do stuff like this and get away with it. And I'm disappointed, but not surprised that this kind of stuff is, allowed to happen. And I don't know. And the first time I had heard of Joe, her son, um, is when he claimed to have found, like 4 pairs of Nike Air Mags in an abandoned storage unit. And now it even makes you question that. Like, is that really what happened? Is that story that he put out there real? Did he really just find 4 pairs of Air Mags that happened to cost $12,000 each, just laying around in an abandoned storage house? Because obviously somebody who owns them had no idea how much they were worth, and they just left them in a storage unit. Now, I'm not gonna accuse anybody of anything, but it makes you think. If you start to connect the dots a little bit, I'll leave that to you, the listener, to kind of go through that and you know connect the dots a little bit. And I think it's very, very disturbing, saddening that stuff like this is gonna keep happening, keep growing, and at the end of the day, as someone who's very passionate about sneakers and about the sneaker community, I think it hurts to see that a lot of these companies that we're so willing to give our money to and to support unrelenting give our unrelenting support to, sorry, that this is the way that we're kind of paid back for it. um I feel like not even just me, like I know so many people who have dedicated a lot of time and money to the sneaker game, and specifically to Nike and to Jordan brand. And it's sad to see that all like pairs that could have been in real sneakerheads' hands, and specifically their feet, that they could have been enjoying these shoes, but instead they're sitting in a warehouse waiting for the buyer that's going to pay $1,000 for the pair of shoes, instead of allowing them to hit the public and allowing the public to gain access to the shoes that that we all love. I mean, we all enjoy a nice new pair of Jordans or a nice new pair of you know off whites or whatever the case may be. But sadly, we live in a world where people like this are gonna continue backdooring, are gonna continue reselling, are gonna continue using bots. Just I don't know, and they're gonna continue to invalidate the sneaker game even more. And we're coming to a point where it's really sad that people who want the shoes that are coming out really can't get them anymore. And yeah, so that I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. I know it's not the usual length of my 30-minute podcast, but I just really wanted to cover this story pretty quickly and get this out, because I know a lot of you are probably going to share the same sentiments as I do. Um, man, yeah, it's like a harsh wake up call to a lot of the sneaker community of what's going on StockX, of what's going on Goat. I love those apps because it's the best way to get authenticated sneakers, because there's really no other way nowadays. But it makes you realize that these are people who are literally trying, not the companies, of course. The people who are selling on these apps are people who are they're literally buying shoes for the sole purpose of going to StockX and trying to upcharge you as much as possible, because they have like 1,000 other pairs in their warehouse, and they're just waiting for the prices to go up so they can continue to scalp everybody for shoes that they wanted. And yeah, so I appreciate everybody listening. This is going to be a short podcast. Like I said, it's an emergency podcast. I really wanted to talk about this, and I know it was a little bit of a rant, but it was something I really needed to get off my chest, because just reading that whole story and that whole article really made me upset. Really, you know, really got me angry and really got me going. But yeah, so thank you all for listening. Please share. Please, subscribe. Do whatever you guys have to do. And I appreciate you all listening, and have a good one. Take care. Stay fresh.